we hear the stories and the tales are passed down over the years from every single place on earth and every culture, pretty much. You hear the stories of the changelings, who are fairy children that are replaced, and their human children are taken back to the fairyland, and the parents don't know the difference at first because they seem the same. Or the Wendigos, shape-shifting, shedding skin, and of course we have these tales about these things, but they're all logically and scientifically based too. You know how when you're growing up as a child, you're learning more and you are growing and your skin is growing with you as you're growing. Your mind and your creativity are growing. But sometimes within eras in history, you hear these stories of certain people doing certain weird things or seemingly being so flexible that they somehow morph into something else, and only a handful of people get to see this thing. So like, because it's not really this normal, it's nothing that can be studied or analyzed or completely told as fact. And scientists and physicists and that have you stuff have really given more credit to the multiple universes and realities and dimensions and timelines. But within that spectrum of things, when they're talking about integrating the fractals of yourself as you're growing up and you're no longer a 6-year-old, you know, you're usually putting the beliefs and ideas of the 6-year-old to bed, to rest. You know, they're dying out and they're becoming something new. But even though it might be expected for that child to have some sort of trigger within the next few years that creates a sort of fracture of itself, and that fracture of itself from whatever trigger that was is now a actual scene in this movie that just keeps playing over and over and over again, as if it's a split screen and one side just keeps going and the other side just stays the same. Well, then there's other people, though, that have so many of these fractals created within themselves and within their own energy frequency that has other lifetimes and deities and, you know, past lives connected to this frequency. They not only have all the fractals of themselves, but then they got the fractals of their soul self. And when they're waking up and putting these fractals back into the center, into the you as a whole, until you learn how to do that, and until you can complete this process, sometimes when it's working its way through the fractals, they can jump into different fractals so quickly and within so many different fractals that when it's switching into this process, your body itself switches and morphs and shifts because your frequency is shifting. Your shape of your body also shifts, because our energy frequency is literally made up of what we're made up. Like, we are all made up of these little tiny strings that join together to make chords, and then the strings and the chords are making bigger strings and chords, and so on and so forth, and that makes up our whole body structure. And when our frequency is, fluctuating into anger or sadness or, whatever, chaos, it is changing shape as it's moving into the waves, and as the frequency is changing, your body is changing, it's morphing. So when somebody is going into these different fractals of themselves so quickly and within so many at once, it can look like you are something that you don't usually appear as. Or it could look like there's stuff coming out of you. Or it could look like you have snakes in your skin. So it can freak somebody out if they didn't know what was happening right away. When you go your entire life in fight, flight, or freeze, when you don't even remember the true shape of who you are because you've never been able to stand within it, it's harder to get back to the alignment of your soul's essence. And it looks a lot messier. But it is possible. But to take this further, since I'm really trying to be just as open and honest and upfront with you guys as possible recently, because it is important to be authentic even in your less appealing appearances. Even each speck of dirt within your skin is some kind of blockage. It's some kind of dis-ease that wants to be cleared in order to continue its process of being your skin. It won't be able to do its job clearly and functionably until that blockage is released and it can feel at ease.